Inside of all of us, there are two wolves, the good wolf and the bad wolf, and they're constantly fighting each other. And the little boy said, well, which one's going to win? And the old man said, well, whichever one you feed is going to win. There are two wolves inside of all of us, right? If we can take this analogy, there is the wolf of gratitude and the wolf of complaining. And if we feed the wrong beast, it will continue to get bigger and stronger, and it will destroy the other one. So which one do you want to feed? Which of those two beasts are you going to feed? The beast of gratitude or the beast of bitching? Because you can't feed them both.
Welcome to the Make Work Not Suck podcast.
With the Thanksgiving holiday coming up here in the US, I thought it'd be good to talk about what happens to work when you are not thankful, when there's no gratitude. I would argue that work sucks when there isn't at least some way you express some thanks and gratitude for the work itself.
Ooh, so there's the question of how does work not suck with gratitude, and how does work suck without gratitude?
Oh, yeah. Great. There's kind of two things there. I'll start with this crazy story because you know that I'm a little bit weird. For a chapter of my career, I was working for a large company, and anytime somebody would see me, they'd say, how's it going? Right? Just kind of normal break room talk. And I'd say, you know what? It's crazy. If you go to Disneyland, they charge you probably $180, $200 to come in to the park and ride the rides. If you go to the movies, they charge you probably $10 to $15 to see all this drama unfold with all these characters. And if you go to Starbucks, you got to pay $5 to get a cup of coffee. But I get to come here every day and ride this crazy roller coaster with you characters and drink all the coffee I want. And they let me in for free. And nobody knew how to respond to that. Like, they just looked at me like, what a weirdo. And they walked away. They're like, I don't need coffee that badly. But what I was trying to do there was trying to help myself, because I definitely had my share of bad days there, and them try to reframe the thought of work and to say, yes, there's certainly things about work that suck. And there's certainly things that we want to make better. But there can be things for us to be thankful for. That was my silly way of trying to help them realize the contrast of what we do every day matters. Yes, there's drama, there's interesting characters, there's free coffee, there's all these things, but we can still find things to be thankful for in any sort of job situation.
While you were telling that story, I was thinking, Thanksgiving is next week for us here in America. And, there's a lot of, because it's Thanksgiving, we're reminded to give thanks, right?
Right.
So next week, I'm sure there's a lot of people that'll say, thank you for what you do. I'm thankful for it. Happy Thanksgiving. And there's probably I wouldn't call it the obligatory thanks because I'm sure it's heartfelt, but it's reminded because it's Thanksgiving.
Right.
There's a little bit of it around, Christmas as well. But what about the rest of the year? Why do we only give gratitude only on, the holiday that's around, focused around gratitude? But what about the other, 51 weeks of the year?
Right. It's like telling
the middle of May or June or July.
Right. It's like telling your spouse you love them only on Valentine's Day.
Right.
You don't get a lot of points for that, at least in my experience.
No, I mean, it's expected. So
yeah, you get docked points if you don't, but you don't get points if you do. Well, I think a lot of it is because there's a lot of commiseration. I think people sometimes like to get in these bitch cycles where everyone's just complaining and whoever can complain the loudest kind of wins. And I've done that. I understand the entertainment value of it, but as I look back on it, I don't think it was actually helpful. I don't think it was helpful to me, to my coworkers. I don't think it put me in a better frame of mind. It made the company better, the culture better. I think it's actually probably more toxic than it is helpful. And yet it's very common for people to just complain and bitch about work. And I wonder if that's actually part of what makes work suck is we have this habit of just complaining about it all the time. It becomes somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Don't even get me started on that, the bitch box. Oh, yeah. So, I'm thinking, business owner, run several businesses, work with several companies. There's one particular one I'm very frustrated with right now.
Okay.
But then I'm thinking about, I'm literally doing what I just asked the question of, where's the gratitude the rest of the year? And I'm going, okay, it's Thanksgiving next week. I want to make sure people know I'm thankful for all their hard work, but I'm very frustrated that we're not getting traction and I want to get this done, but I got to give gratitude. That sucks.
It does.
I'll hit the leadership persona, right? The executive persona. Sometimes that sucks. Like,
It really does.
I have to give gratitude when like I'm busting my ass over here. At the same time, who's giving me gratitude? Everybody just thinks I'm the bad guy because I'm, trying to help the company grow, trying to hold people accountable to the mission and the core values. But you got to give gratitude because of a holiday.
Right.
You can split. Why not split the work from the professional, or the personal and the professional? I don't know. Let's. I think there's a lot of people probably stuck in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's very
Frustrated at work, whether you're the boss, the manager, or the employee. You want to be nice. You got a holiday coming up. But what about the other side of that, where you like begrudgingly give thanks?
I have two thoughts on begrudging thanks. One, I think is beneficial to you to force yourself through the exercise of finding things to be grateful for. It changes your mentality. It changes your orientation. It can change your mindset. Even if you don't want to do it, doing it anyways can have positive benefits for you. So at any level, employee, manager, leader, executive owner, spending some time identifying the things that you can be truly grateful for. Even if you don't feel it in the moment, you can be like, you know what? I know this is a good thing. I certainly get frustrated with it at times, but I am thankful for this. It's a valuable exercise. Now, point two, if you don't feel it and you're not really in the spirit of gratitude, it is hard and potentially unproductive to communicate that gratitude to somebody else, right? Begrudging gratitude is never well received. So I would say,
well, and I think the other side can call you out on it too. Everybody's got a pretty good BS filter these days.
Right. It's hard to sell that consistently. But I think the practice of gratitude is super important, because without it, I know, especially for leaders, it's always easier to see the things that aren't working well, the things that are broken, the things that we haven't achieved yet, the gap, rather than the progress that we've made. Every level needs to regularly practice some things that they're thankful for, even if they don't communicate it to somebody else.
So I'll tell you one simple practice, and I'm sure this is in 1,000 self-help books and all over the place, but truly picking one thing you're grateful for in the morning. Get up out of bed and just pick one thing. I'm grateful for X. Just think about that all day long. Will actually change your mindset. You actually find you bitch less, you tolerate bitching less.
Yes.
And you'll find more things to be grateful for.
Absolutely. As somebody who has been unemployed, having any job is something to be thankful for. I've had good jobs, I've had bad jobs, I've had no jobs. Having no job, when you've got people depending on you, that is a horrible place to be. And so no matter how bad it is, the fact that you've got a place to go that is paying you to be there is something to be thankful for. Could it be better? I'm sure it could be. But let's start with, you know what? I at least have a job.
Yep. So let's also look at this one. And I think I learned this from you. There's what you build, you optimize, and you scale. Or no, you say it slightly different. How do you say it?
The strategize, standardize, optimize?
Yes. Okay. So I butchered that by saying build, optimize, scale. So I'm going to roll with that one because that's what's in my head.
Okay.
I think sometimes we're so focused on the build and everything's not perfect that we don't give gratitude for the people that are doing the work to standardize or to optimize or to scale. which is just doing the daily grind.
Mhm.
So if you're a manager or an executive and and you're not where you want to be, whether it's a project or a rock or KPI or whatever, and it's in the build phase, I think you've got two levels of gratitude there. One, gratitude for the people helping you build it, and two, gratitude for the people that are helping maintain it while you're building it. And I think sometimes we're so focused on the build that we negate the maintaining because somebody's still got to sweep the floor, answer the phones, respond to the customer, et cetera, et cetera. So, and a little bit of gratitude just on those day-to-day tasks can go a long way.
Yeah. I would say that maybe expanded a little bit. I know it can be easy for leaders to thank the salesperson who's selling the next deal, the development team who's developing the next version of the product. But the unspoken heroes are the people who are taking care of the current customer and supporting the current version of the product and doing more of kind of the day-to-day, less seen, but almost more important tasks of an organization. And I think it's very easy for leaders who are focused on growth and tomorrow and the next thing to overlook a large percentage of their organization that is just keeping the lights on and keeping everything running on time, which is a huge deal. So work sucks when you are not grateful. Would we also say that work does not suck when we are grateful?
I think the image pops in my head is the meme with the house on fire and the little girl going, "It's all good."
This is
right?
fine.
I mean, I guess it can be if you're delusional or if you choose to ignore it. I mean, sure. But I think work sucks less when there's mutual gratitude for the work that's being done. I think gratitude comes from having a higher consciousness, if you will. I'm going to butcher this a little bit. When we are negative, we're using our emotional side, right? We're we're a little illogical or maybe very illogical, but we're not using the thing that separates us from animals and humans, our neocortex, our intelligent part of our brain. Versus gratitude comes from that neocortex. You have to think through what you're trying to be grateful for. You have to put yourself above the animal brain, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think it's very easy to get to the animal brain and go negative versus that gratitude is very intentional, positive. I think when you're in that gratitude mindset and you're providing it and you're receiving it in a non-emotional way, it puts you into an elevated state. We're using a higher level of intelligence, which again builds compounding interest as long as you're working in the right direction.
Right.
So I think there's a level of just being in that mindset will make work suck less because you're doing the right work, you're working on the right things, you're putting points on the board, you're scoring, etc.
One of the kind of frameworks that I've used in gratitude is that vision, journey, culture, results that we've talked about so many times. There have been times in my career when, I've felt stuck in a job and kind of going through that cycle and trying to understand, okay, what do I have to be grateful for? Vision. Hey, you know what? This was the job I wanted 2 years ago, and now I'm in that job. That's something to be thankful for. Now, does that take away everything that sucks about it? Well, no, it doesn't. But there's a sense in which I have achieved a goal that I had for myself of getting into this position or getting that promotion or finally getting that set of responsibilities. That's something to be grateful for, even if it's not everything I thought it would be. Or the journey. What are the things on my calendar this week that I get to do that I really enjoy? Whether it's working on a particular project, working with a particular person, maybe it's a lunch with a favorite client. Whatever it is, find that thing that you actually are getting to do this week that you enjoy. Maybe it's the culture. Maybe it's the person. It's a relationship. It's the person that sits in the cube next to you that you just really enjoy hanging out with. Or it could be the results, right? It could be the fact, you know what? There's a lot of bad things here, but I'm thankful that next Friday I'm getting a paycheck and I get to take care of the people I love, maybe go out and have a little bit of fun that weekend. That vision, journey, culture, results can be a helpful framework to say, okay, there's got to be something here I can be thankful for. And by choosing to focus on that, I'm choosing a different mindset. Even though I can't change the reality, I can change the way I'm viewing reality.
Ooh, that's good. You just reminded me of a scenario between Maria and I that was literally on the plane that I was on this morning. And it ended up in a level of gratitude. And I hope I'm correct. I hope when she listens to this, she says, yeah, that's right. Maybe she can drop a note in the comments if I'm either full of shit or if I'm correct here. It was a moment of going through a situation and we were going back and forth. It was a frustration. And we did. I started taking the wheel and I'm like, okay, what's the vision here? Okay, vision. Do we know the journey? Okay, this is an agile scrum problem. All right, let's go to the culture. There's the disconnect. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a culture. We had a culture behavioral problem that disconnect us from the journey, the process. Yep. Okay, so let's go back to that conversation. Bang, 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 bang. Do we understand how we didn't hold this behavior, which then turned around, we didn't follow Agile Scrum, which landed us in this result where a team member did something without product owner approval. It wasn't a breakdown in process. It was a breakdown in, adherence to the core values. But because we used the wheel, we navigated through this and we figured it out. She said, yep, I was wrong. I'm sorry. And I said, yep. And then it was, hey, I appreciate the fact that we went through this. It was a frustrating experience, but because we were able to identify it using the wheel and go down to, okay, we identified the core value where we missed, which means we didn't quite understand the journey. All right, so here's where we're disconnected on it. All right, let's go back to the vision. What's the vision? This is the goal, the objective. What's the journey? Okay, we're using Agile Scrum as our journey process. We know our core values. All right, can we produce the result? Yes. Then the moment of gratitude happened of, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to work through this with me. I think we've got more clarity. Yes, I agree, et cetera, et cetera. And so even in that moment of frustration, there was gratitude expressed because we took the time to understand the problem. We used the wheel to do so, which drove clarity, and then we move forward.
That's great. Yeah. Very, very rare for a moment of frustration to produce gratitude, but that's fantastic if you can do it.
Well, what was interesting, and well, maybe a little too much plug for the Simplify method here, is what it really was. This was a health problem, vision, culture, alignment problem. Mm-hmm. But it was perceived as a journey problem because it felt like we weren't following some level of Agile Scrum. And I went, no. We need to go vision, culture, then journey, then results. And so because we had a health problem, right? What failed us? Effectively, we didn't get the objective done. But why did we fail the objective? Because we weren't, healthy, if you will, mm-hmm. in this particular scenario. And so by using that to say, okay, let's address the health component. Okay, addressed. Now let's go to the effectiveness component. Got it. Then we were able to progress forward.
Interesting.
From her mindset, she was looking vision, journey, culture. And I went, let's align on the health axis because we have an effectiveness problem. We weren't effective, which means we didn't get the job done. We had an issue, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go to health, vision, culture, align vision, culture. Then we went to journey.
Is that a recommendation?
Framework recommendation.
Are you recommending that when you've got a problem, you start first by assessing the health, or was that just kind of a intuition that you had about what the problem was?
Well, so it started with what's the vision, and we got it. And I said, what's our process? Agile Scrum. So we went vision, journey, culture, results. The disconnect was once kind of identifying, agreeing on kind of the vision, journey, culture, results, going through it. Once we kind of outlined it, it went, okay, then why did we have a breakdown? And I started with health because we always say you can't be more effective than you are healthy, right?
True.
So we always look at health first. So then when I went to the health component, that is where we actually found the root cause to fix the issue, which then made us more effective. And by going through that process, we ended up with the level of gratitude where, I appreciate her going through it. I felt understood. We were on the same page. According to our phone call, she was no longer mad at me. And we moved on.
Excellent.
Again, if I'm full of shit, she can,
we'll see it in the comments. All right. So what would be your advice to employees, managers, and leaders, executives, as we head into the holiday of Thanksgiving, at least here in the US? What is something that they could or should do from a gratitude perspective to make work not suck, even if it's just for a little bit?
I'm going to challenge all levels on this one.
Okay.
Start a habit, waking up every day. What are you grateful for? If you can do a personal one, what are you grateful for in your personal life? And what are you grateful for in your professional life? And really think through it. Don't try to do the same thing every day. Oh, I'm grateful for Bob. The next day, I'm grateful for Bob. Like you gotta keep looking around. Like don't rinse and repeat every single day. But if you could just do that and start it right now, do it while the period of thanks is fresh in our mind. and continue that on, it will have compounding interest over the next year. I think use the season, because everybody's in that mindset. Use that as the motivation to build the habit, because if you provide that gratitude on a more frequent basis, then you will be more aligned with your peers. You will be a lot more aligned with your boss, and you will be more, not just aligned, but you'll have more understanding and meaning and more connectedness to your work. And I mean, hopefully it'll actually drive conversations. It's not going to be an end all be all. It's not a miracle cure, but it's a step to identifying issues in a more meaningful way that then can be addressed.
Yeah.
And everybody knows when you go into a situation elevated and frustrated, it never ends well. Versus if you come into a situation more level-headed and cooler, typically you come to resolution faster. By building that gratitude habit, you will actually approach things in a more calmer, more intelligent manner, and you'll probably make work not suck or not suck as bad because you're approaching it in a different mindset. And I think that goes for everybody. I think if you're an employee, find ways to give gratitude to your peers and your manager. If you're a manager, with your peers, your direct reports, and your leaders. And if you're a leadership team, I think you got to find ways to give gratitude across the entire organization.
Yeah, there is untold number of physiological benefits to gratitude. Lower blood pressure, lower cortisol levels. There's a lot of research out there that says spending just a little bit of time thinking about the things that you're grateful for has profound mental and physical and emotional and spiritual benefits. So I love that recommendation. One practical example, I'm working with a client right now, and they don't start every meeting this way, but most of their regular scheduled meetings, like the L10, they actually start with gratitude. They basically say, what's something that you're thankful for? And sometimes the thing that you're thankful for is that horrible thing I just went through is over, which is fine to be grateful for something that is no longer part of your day-to-day reality. But I have found it to be a pretty powerful way to not only start a meeting with the right attitude, but also get to know your coworkers a little bit. When you start to hear the things that they're grateful for, you begin to hear what's really important to them. I think that's a really beneficial habit that this would be a really good season, a really good time of year to start that habit and keep it going. If you have a weekly team meeting or a bi-weekly team meeting, whatever that is, and you have ownership of that agenda, I'd encourage you to just put that into the first 5 minutes of the agenda. Share one thing that you're thankful for today and watch what that does to the tone of the meeting.
100%. So I took note of that one. I want to take your advice here. The other one is as I was saying what I was saying a minute ago, I kind of went, I should probably follow that advice. So I put, me and my sticky notes. I put a sticky note here down on my monitor so that I can, follow the advice of that we just told everybody else to follow.
What? Be grateful?
Not be grateful. I think for me, I do a pretty good job of I'll give a plug out here because I use one of the focus planners, and it does a great job of highlight. One of the questions is, what are you grateful for? Is what are your most important tasks today? What are you grateful for? What are you gonna do for fun, etc. And so on a personal level, I'm pretty good, but I'm actually not really good at it on a professional level. I'm going to commit to take the advice I just said to do it professionally.
I would say I would echo your advice and kind of challenge every layer of the organization, employees at all levels, that they can be a positive cultural influence from any seat in the organization. Even if you don't control the agenda of a meeting, I can't think of a company that being grateful would cut against the grain of their core values, right? You're not going to get fired for being grateful. So in your conversations, find the things that you can compliment, the things that you can be grateful for, the positive things that you can call out. Make that a part of the conversation. Even if you don't have the positional authority, the title, the corner office, I would encourage you to be an agent of change in your organization, to stop the bitching and interrupt it with something that you can be grateful for. Now, if you are in a position of authority or you're in that corner office, I think the onus is even greater on you to influence the organization in the correct direction.
1,000%. So you just said something, and I was waiting to I'm still kind of in the draft mode, but I'm gonna sneak peek this a little bit. Maybe we'll get some input. Is I'm working on a kind of an article called "The 5 Must-Dos for Leading Change Within." I don't like this part, but it's becoming a corporate influencer. I don't like the word corporate influencer. We got to think a better word here, but it talks about driving change from within. Someone that doesn't just lead but embodies change, influences culture, engagement, and innovation throughout the organization. You are not, doesn't necessarily mean you are a manager or leader, but it means you're an individual that embodies change, just like you just said. And I think there's 5 bullet points here. I'm not going to share all 5, but I'll give you 2 of them. 2 of them is amplify employee voices. And so I think that's helping shine out the gratitude moments, right? That's where being elevating your peers, giving shout outs to peers, et cetera. And then also celebrating the small wins. Gratitude also comes with celebrating the wins. When there is a point put on the board, you can high five that and then thank the team for putting the point on the board.
Most organizations are terrible at that. I know very few organizations that I would say are good at celebrating their wins.
I agree. Well, maybe one of the next podcast episodes is going to be the 5 must-dos for leading change within.
I like it. I think that'd be great.
So sneak peek on this little bit right here. Needs some work. I don't like the phrase corporate influencer. That just sounds too corporate.
I think it sounds too social media influencer, but I don't know. We'll keep working on it.
But the content's good.
Yeah, I like the idea. I had a dear friend that I worked with many years ago. He was fond of saying many organizations would rather admire their problems than solve them.
That is good.
And it stung so bad because I found myself falling into this. It was the same company where I was trying to be a more positive influence in the organization. And what I began to realize was I was part of that problem. We loved to bitch and complain about the problems that were there. And look, every organization has problems, right? There is no organization that doesn't have problems. If you're not growing, that's a problem. If you grow, you have different problems. There's no scenario in which there are no problems. Complaining about those problems does nothing but create cancer. And so the perhaps second piece of advice or encouragement that I would give is stop complaining about the problems and start doing something about them.
Should we throw out a Jocko Willick there? Good.
Good.
You have these problems. Good. Now you have the opportunity to solve them.
Right.
I was in a board meeting the other day, and he says, I don't have to do these things. We have the opportunity to do these things. And I like the fact I have the opportunity to solve complex problems because it allows us to, solve them. So I agree. And I mean, just like you and I, we've both been guilty of being in the bitch box or being the bitcher to the bitch box. And really what did we do? We just wasted our time, energy, and soul.
Yeah. It doesn't actually help. What you just said reminded me of an interview I heard with Barack Obama several years ago. And Barack Obama said, as the president of the United States, if a decision lands on my desk, it's not an easy decision, because if it was easy, somebody up the chain would have solved it. I only get the hard stuff. And you can view that 2 ways, right? You can look at that and be like, oh man, poor me. My job sucks. I get the hardest problems in the company. Okay, that is true. And that is one way to think about it. I would say the inverse is, man, I am so thankful that I have a team of people that are solving so many problems on a day-to-day basis that I don't even have to get involved. And the only thing that I have to deal with are these ones that are really tricky and probably require whoever's sitting at the top of the org chart to make these kinds of decisions. I think that's just a matter of perspective. They're both true statements. Which one are you going to choose as your perspective, as your view?
It's interesting you say that. If it makes it to my desk, it's the difficult problem to solve. I think if you look at the president, they pick a cabinet of people around them, and there's, hundreds and thousands of people around them to make things happen, right? So if something gets on the actual president of the United States desk, it is a hard problem to solve. But I think the problem in the average company, especially in the SMB space, I don't think they have, some cases they don't have that cabinet of people or hundreds/thousands of people. And sometimes it really is the least important problem that makes it to the company president's desk because they don't have it. But that's a different topic for a different day.
Yeah. Whose desk should this problem be sitting on?
Right. But I think there is, you have the opportunity to solve that problem to keep it from getting to your desk?
So here's how I would wrap up our conversation. I've been talking to my 11-year-old, almost 12-year-old son about this a lot. I'm going to butcher where the source of this, but the idea was that I think an ancient Indian leader was talking to his son and said, inside of all of us, there are two wolves, the good wolf and the bad wolf, and they're constantly fighting each other. And the son or the little boy said, well, which one's going to win? And the old man said, well, whichever one you feed is going to win. I have shared that with my son and shared a lot with myself of there are two wolves inside of all of us, right? If we can take this analogy, there is the wolf of gratitude and the wolf of complaining. And if we feed the wrong beast, it will continue to get bigger and stronger, and it will destroy the other one. So which one do you want to feed? Whether you are an employee, a manager, a leader, a tenured executive, you have a decision to make for yourself first, and then for your organization second. Which of those two beasts are you going to feed? The beast of gratitude or the beast of bitching? Because you can't feed them both.
Ooh, I like that. And to compound that with the season, I think given the fact next week's Thanksgiving, the compounding advice is use this as an opportunity to feed the gratitude wolf. Nothing but the gratitude wolf. Feed the gratitude wolf next week and see if you can make work not suck within your job or your company.
I love that.
Make work not suck. Our podcast that talks about exactly that. Our process, vision, journey, culture, and results. We present real-world business solutions that make the difference. Our goal is to make work not suck. Hosted by Ryan Hodges, co-host Daniel Steere. Join us each episode and make work not suck.